Everyone talks about the top 1% as if it's some mysterious club for the ultra rich. But here's the real question. How much money do you actually have to make or have in order to get in? Today, I'm going to break down the exact numbers for what the 1% of Canada is made of, compare it to the average Canadian, and show you a real plan to get there even if you're starting from zero. So, let's get started. So in today's video, we'll be talking about 5 things. The first one is income. How much do you need to make in order to be the top 1%? Then we'll talk about net worth, the real 1% club. I'll explain, what it means. Now the third thing, which is extremely important, and I always wondered who these 1% are, who lives in these big homes and making good money. So who are they and what do they do? We'll talk about that. Then I'll talk about my story of how I started from $75,000 per year when I came to Canada. That was my first job in Canada. Now I had an entire career and failed businesses, before this, and how I won't really call myself the 1%, but for sure, in terms of income, I would be tagged as 1%, but income is not the only thing that we need to look at. But I'll talk about my journey and what I learned along the way. And then finally, I'll talk about your action plan if you are starting from scratch. The first thing that we need to discuss is income and how much do you have to make to earn 1% in Canada. And no, they aren't making millions of dollars a year. The 1% are not making millions of dollars. In fact, it's a lot lower than what I thought it would be. Canada-wide, the average, the median 1% income is $270,000 per year. That makes the 1% club. Ontario is slightly higher. I'm not surprised, $295,000 per year. I was actually surprised by this number. Alberta, which is $325,000 per year, and that's majorly to do with oil, energy, high-paying trades. These industries have high-paying, even senior executive roles make upwards of $200,000. So I'm not surprised. I'm a little bit surprised that this number is higher. This is all come from StatCan, so I'm not making up these numbers. But yeah, it is what it is. Let's say $300,000 is what you need. BC is about $270,000, and everything is in between that. So let's say it's $270,000 to $300,000 that you need in individual income. This is before taxes, per year to be the 1%. The median individual income in Canada is $46,000. So that basically means that the 1% is making 6 to 7 times more than the average Canadian. That's the amount of difference that we are talking about. But honestly, income should not even be the criteria for being the top 1%. I know a lot of people who are making $1 million a year, which is 4 times what the average 1% makes, and still broke. They somehow are able to outspend their income and not have anything to show for at the end of the month. That's the difference between the rich and the wealthy. A millionaire is not someone who is making $1 million. It's someone who can keep $1 million. Which brings me to my second point of the video, which is net worth, which is, in my view, the real 1% club. That's why I said that, I might be making good income, but if I am not in this net worth 1% club, I don't consider myself the 1%, but hopefully someday if I, reach there, that will be great, but I'll talk about that as well. 6.1 million Canadian dollar net worth is the top 1% in Canada. It's not very different from if you compare it to US or other, developed nations. It will be between 6 to 8 million dollars. Canada is, at par with the G7. And this includes primary home equity, investments, retirement accounts, business ownership. But unfortunately, the twist in Canada is 70% of the Canadian household wealth is in real estate, which is sad, but that's the truth. So if you remove the primary home from this equation, only about 790,000 Canadian households have investable assets of over $1 million, which includes stock, cash, and investment properties. That's about 5% of the households. So if I remove the primary home from this equation, we are coming to around 4 million Canadian dollar, excluding your primary home equity, and this only includes investments, retirement accounts, and business ownership. If you have equity in those businesses, stocks in the business, that's what I'm including right now. So it comes to about 4 million Canadian dollar. This is as per today's purchasing power parity. Now, if I say that I want to retire 1 million Canadians with $5 million, which, is what I want to do, it does not mean that you will be in the 1% club, because with inflation, and if I adjust the $4 million to inflation, it will come out to be a lot higher than the 5 million. But that's what it takes to be the top 1% if you talk about net worth, which is probably a better yardstick, and I would exclude the primary home because it's not an asset. Let's talk about the third one, which is something that I was very intrigued. Who are these people and what are they doing, with their jobs? So who are the top 1%? The age is, in fact, between 55 to 65. The average millionaire is about 62, which is I'm talking about 1% millionaire is about 62 in Canada. So it's not something who is like a teenager who is making millions of dollars. That's not who an average 1%er is. They are someone who is closer to their retirement or at retirement. Career background, small business owners, professionals. When I say professionals, it's doctors, lawyers, accountants, corporate executives, CEOs of companies, CFOs of companies who are making a lot of money, not just in salary, but in stock. Successful tradespeople. There are a lot of electricians, plumbers, there are builders, real estate investors. All these people make this 1%. Multiple sources of income. They do have 2 to 4 assets. It could be cash flowing properties. It could be, like different RIFs that they have. It could be stock investments. It could be bond. It could be anything which is cash flowing. Closer to an average person. Let's say it's 62. They're closer to retirement or at retirement. They have 2 to 4 asset types that are producing cash flow. And 65% of Canadians who are in the top 1% are self-made. Being in the top 1% is not always about the money that you have or what's sitting in your bank account or the toys and the cars that you can buy. It's about what that level of wealth unlocks for you. The first one is tax advantages. If you own a business, you have massive tax advantages and write-offs that you can make on your business. That's an advantage that a business owner would always have over someone who is salaried. Then you get exposed to opportunities, deals, investments, partnerships. Some of them are invisible to the common person. But because you now operate in circles which are high net worth, these opportunities become normal conversation. And the third one is the network itself. Wealth attracts other driven and resourceful people, and these people get you the opportunities that I talked about. And the beauty of this is that you do not have to be in the 1% in order to get access to these rooms. I bought myself into a network of real estate investors who were ultra millionaires. Each of them owned 10, 20, 30, hundreds of properties. The person who was at the helm of it owns over 1,000 doors. 1,000 doors. And for $15,000, I was able to learn how he built that empire. And more importantly, surround myself with people who were investing in the US, Canada, buying multifamily homes, which got me into US, and I invested in my first multifamily real estate. That's the power of network. Last year, I bought a $8,000 mastermind, which got me into the room with Alex Hermosi, my longtime hero, and more importantly, 100 plus other entrepreneurs who were building multi-million dollar businesses. And a lot of them I'm still in touch with, and I'm pretty sure of all the information that I've gathered across, when I met these people in that conference to now, my business will grow by over 50% in the next 2 years. Even if you are not in the 1%, search for events and masterminds where the 1% hang out. Which brings me to my personal journey of starting with $75,000 per year when I came to Canada to where I am today. So I came to Canada in 2020, but this story actually starts in 2015 when I went to Hong Kong. I was making 6 figures. I was married. I was enjoying life. I was traveling a lot. Like Hong Kong is a really nice place if you want to travel, but I was saving nothing. And I thought that I should just save enough to buy a home, and that would be my wealth plan. And then I realized that wealthy are playing a very different game. I used to go past homes that I live in right now and used to ask myself, what does this guy do for a living? Pretty sure he's doing something shady. But that thinking changed back in 2015 when I met my first billionaire, and probably the only billionaire that I've ever met in Hong Kong. So inspired by his story and watching a lot of Shark Tank, I started my first business in 2017. I was still in Hong Kong, failed a bunch of times, quit my job for the first time, moved from Hong Kong to India, failed a little more, and then moved to Canada, started working a 9 to 5 with Walmart as a research analyst, earning $75,000 per year, but I learned a lot during this journey. And those learnings I then implemented starting in 2021 when I started the current business that I'm in. So here are 5 things that I learned in no particular order, but I'll still, like organize it in a way that you can consume easily. But the first one was a wake-up call. I can't be that 1% in my job. I have to start a business or become a doctor, dentist, because professionals can also make that amount of money. But I was none of those. My salary capped at $200,000, maybe 250 if I reached, like CXO level. But that was it. Like I could not cross that. So I can't be the 1% in my job, and maybe that's okay. But it was not okay for me, which I later realized that I was wrong. But I'll get to that in a bit. Now, phase 2 is skill development, and there are 4 skills that I feel that everyone should learn if you want to be the 1%. Every successful entrepreneur or person that I've seen, CEO, CXO people, all those people have these 4 skills. The first one is communication, the second one is sales, the third one is problem solving, and the fourth one is team building. Look around. If you see any successful person, you would see that these 4 things are one of the many traits that those people would have. And if I were to name 4 traits that one should have to be successful, these are the 4 ones, and all these traits can be learned. I'll give you an example. I am not very comfortable making videos in English, but that was critical to my business because I was losing out on a huge South Indian population. I don't care about targeting Canadians. If you are watching and you are a Canadian born, no offense, but the reason why I started making videos in English was to target the South Indian audience who don't understand Hindi. So that was me adapting to my business. Similarly, sales is not about selling this brush. It's about selling this brush to the right person, whether they need this brush or not. It's again, I am not here to convince you whether to buy a home or not. As a mortgage agent, my role is, if you have already decided that you want to buy the home, I want to make sure that you get the right steps, the right process, and you don't get cheated along the way, and eventually you are able to save a lot of money and be mortgage free. I'm not here to get your mortgage. I want to ensure that you are able to retire mortgage free early. So the problem in my business is not that you need a mortgage. The problem in my business is mortgage comes with debt and responsibility. How to maneuver through that? That's the real solution that I'm providing. And of course, team building is important because it is also one of the 5 levers that you have in business. So phase 3 is build high leverage. And the way to do that is 5. There are 5 ways of doing that. When you're starting out, I think a lot of people think about a $1 billion exit, having 1,000 employees. The biggest leverage that you have is time. You have time. You have a lot of time on your hands, and you can spend that time to perfect the skills, to upskill, to, like cold call and see whether someone wants your product or not. Do everything yourself. Even if you have a $20 product, $10 product, do it one-on-one with people so that you understand what you need to improve in that product, which is exactly what I did when I started my mortgage business. I wanted to make sure that I was talking to each and every client and doing the mortgage myself. I did that for 2 long years before I used the second part of the leverage, which was people. I then built a system because I had done 3,000 calls and I knew what the system is to make those calls. And I was able to build a system around what I was doing. And then I was able to train that system, or train people on that system. Then I started making content. This is something that I was doing in parallel. Like, you can always, run these in parallel. Content allowed me to sell even when I'm sleeping because, I might be sleeping at 8 a.m. in the morning or 8 p.m., whatever, time I sleep. But there could be people who will be watching at 10 p.m. at night while I am sleeping, and they might book a mortgage call, and then my team would service that. So content is a very high leverage, and this content will actually grow. Right now, this video is getting 5,000 views, but if one video grows, this channel can actually get more and more views. This particular video can get 50,000, 100,000 views because it will remain on the internet forever, at least until YouTube is there. Then the fourth level of leverage that you have is code. It's extremely difficult, and I don't want to get into the modalities, but imagine this, like Stripe was built by 2 people. The core code was built by 2 people, and that API is being used worldwide. Now, obviously, Stripe has a lot of employees, but that's the power of code. That's the fourth kind of leverage that you can build. And then you have capital. You see on Shark Tank people making money off money. So you just invest money into multiple startups, and one startup goes really well, and it has a $1 billion exit, and you make a lot of money. So capital is the fifth lever that you have. Anyways, I spent a lot of time on this, but it was important. Phase 4, keep living way below your means loans. It's extremely important. My mortgage expenses right now, and even when I started my business, was less than 10% of my income. And my income obviously is pretty high. It was very high since 2022 when I started doing business. And the reason why it's low, my mortgage expenses are lower than 10% of my income, is because I want to invest in the future. I want to invest in the stock market. I want to invest back into my business so that I'm able to grow. The fifth one, and that's something that a lot of people miss, is balance. I invest heavily. I still take vacations. I only work 5 days a week, especially after Aryan was born. He's 9 months old now. I want to make sure that I'm spending time with family, and all these first 4 things that I've done, especially the building high leverage part and keeping my living expenses way below my means, keep living way below the phase 3 and phase 4. That's extremely important, irrespective of what phase you are. Even if you're making, let's say, $5,000 a month, if you're living on 2,000 and making 5,000, you'll have the freedom to do a lot more, invest a lot more, and therefore retire early. When I met this billionaire at the event, I asked him, people say YOLO, right? You only live once. I asked him, is $1 billion worth the cost you paid? And his answer shocked me. I really thought that a person with everything that he ever wanted, I looked up to him for his wealth. I thought that he'll say yes. He said something that I did not understand at the time, but now I understand. He said that you should be willing to trade off a few things for this $1 billion or whatever amount of money you want to make, and some of those trade-offs are irreversible. In the quest to build a $1 billion empire, he lost his marriage, he has 2 kids who are not living with him, and all that because he got consumed with his business. Which is where I talked about the 5th phase, which is balance. Some people I meet have zero sense of where to stop. How much is enough? Being the 1% is overrated. Owning a business is overrated. Every dollar you earn over and above what you need comes with trade-offs. It could be family, it could be health. So if you are someone who wants to be the 1%, you need to understand that there will be trade-offs and you need to know where to stop. Which brings me to my 5th point, your action plan and how to start from scratch. And no, it does not involve you becoming the 1%. It's just a normal plan that anyone can follow. Now that you know what it takes to be the 1% in Canada, I want to send you part 2 of this video where you can build your own 1% plan. It includes a 15-minute video along with an Excel where you can build that plan. You can either scan the QR code that you can see on the screen or go into the description of this video and click the link. I hope you liked this video. If you did, do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done that. And I promise you that I'll come with more data-backed, action-packed videos that will help you build wealth faster. That's all I have for today. मिलते हैं अगली वीडियो में. तब तक के लिए bye bye.